So now we're going to talk about some factors that affect both supply and demand, starting with demand. Price is important, but it's not the only factor that affects demand. There are other factors also that affect demand. Some even influence the type of product in demand as well as the quantity demanded. A product that has utility will satisfy customers' wants or needs. Remember, utility means, I guess we didn't get the chance to discuss it, but utility in the world of economics basically means satisfaction. If the product provides satisfaction, if it's useful or needed, there will be a demand for it. The usefulness of a product depends on the consumer. What is useful to one person may not be as useful to another. For example, gasoline or car insurance. These products are not useful to a person who does not own a car. These products are very useful, though, to someone who is a car owner because they can't operate their vehicles without them. Usefulness also depends on a person's age, gender, those kinds of things. For example, women have more use for cosmetics typically than men do. College students need textbooks and supplies that other consumers do not want or see much use for. External influences also affect a person's idea of utility or satisfaction. Advertisements, commercials, store displays, they all encourage people to think they need certain products. Peer pressure has an impact on products consumers demand as well. Just like in high school, you might feel pressured to buy something just because everyone else has it. Buying power also affects demand. Consumers can't buy products if they don't have the money to spend. If you spend all your income on necessities, you do not have money available to buy other goods. For example, if you received a raise at your job, you will have extra money to spend and your buying power will increase. You might be able to purchase the concert tickets you want but don't necessarily need. The price of other goods and services also affect demand. Depending on what product a consumer is looking for, there are often substitute goods and services available. As an example, consider tires. Let's say a person only wants inexpensive tires that will last a short time. That means there's no demand for high-quality, expensive tires that have a 60,000-mile warranty. If lower-priced substitutes provide what customers want, the demand for those products increase. This causes demand for higher-priced products to decrease. Some products are also what we call in economics complementary and are used together. That's what complementary products are. They're products that are used together. Demand for the main product influences demand for complementary products. An example would be skiing. If the cost of a lift ticket increases substantially, that means the demand for those tickets might decrease. If fewer people are skiing, the demand for skis and accessories also goes down. Some more examples of complementary products would be like printers and ink cartridges, and maybe game systems like an Xbox and games, or computer hardware like a keyboard, a mouse, and computer software like antivirus. So consumers themselves are actually a factor. The number of consumers in certain groups often determine demand for certain products, if that makes sense. When there are more health-conscious, like an example would be when there are more health-conscious consumers, restaurants must increase their healthy menu options. Like at a lot of restaurants now, there are calorie counts and a lot more healthy options because consumers are starting to be more health conscious. Also, when there's an increase in the number of senior citizens, there's usually an increase in the demand for retirement communities. The standard of living also influences a consumer's decision to buy or not to buy. People usually buy products to maintain their quality of life and general living conditions. Demand for a Rolls-Royce automobile is significantly less than demand for Chevrolets because buying a Rolls-Royce reflects a very high standard of living. Consumer expectations also affect demand. Consumers often wait to buy if they think prices will drop and they will get a bargain later. Consumers also might buy a lot now if they think the price is the lowest it will ever be. So now let's talk about factors that affect supply. Demand actually has a huge influence on supply. For example, when demand is high, businesses increase production to make sure that adequate quantities are available for sale. When demand is low, businesses cut back to avoid having too many products that cannot be sold. The cost of production is a factor in determining how much to supply. Businesses produce less if costs are higher than the prices most consumers will be willing to pay. They will also supply only enough to meet limited demand. An example, again, is Rolls-Royce, which is really, really costly to make. The selling price is also very, very high. The company produces only a few to sell to those who can afford to pay the price. Businesses make more when costs decrease and they can charge a lower price. Consumers usually buy more when prices are low, so businesses increase the supply. For example, the cost of producing more electronic goods, like computers and televisions, has decreased significantly over time. Supply has increased while the selling price has continued to go down. Businesses factor in labor costs also to determine cost of production. Higher wages and better benefits increase costs. This might cause a business to make fewer products but change more for each one. This might cause a business to stop making the product altogether. The number of producers also affects supply. Supply increases as more and more companies enter the market and provide similar products. For instance, consider the many companies that make jeans, like Levi. At one time, only a few clothing manufacturers made them. Then the popularity of jeans increased. More and more companies started actually making them. Today, a lot of department stores produce their own private label jeans. Plus, they sell designer and brand name jeans made by others. An enormous supply of jeans is in the market now. And I'm sure you can think of a lot of different brands out there. Future prices also affect supply. Businesses would not be able to sell a product today for $10 if they could sell it for $20 in 2 months. If they expect prices to increase substantially, they might wait to sell. Supply decreases if businesses keep products off the market until the price is right. An example would be like coffee growers who think the price of coffee beans will double soon. They might decide to store the beans until they earn more profit. The supply of coffee decreases in the meantime. Think that coffee growers wouldn't stop or stoop to holding back their beans until the price goes up? There's a lot of stories out there. For example, in Brazil, a lot of coffee growers held back their beans so that they could get a higher price because they knew it was going to go up in the future. Businesses might increase supply now if they think the prices will decrease in the future. Then future supply decreases because of lower prices. A lot of factors affect supply, but disasters and emergencies definitely influence supply, just like we've seen in the Nebraska flood a year ago. Weather and natural disasters are big factors. Pandemics are factors. An example would be if orange trees in Florida freeze, the supply of Florida oranges will decrease. If a flood destroys all of our crops, the supply of maybe corn will be reduced. The supply of gasoline fluctuates because of events like political unrest. So when we have all these riots that took place this summer that affect the prices of gasoline, wildfires, pipeline spills, those kinds of things. Governments also affect supply. With all their rules and regulations, this can have a definite effect on supply, especially with taxes. Taxes on many types of imported goods are intended to limit the supply of those goods, but taxes on products the government thinks are harmful are intended to control the supply. Like restrictions on the use of certain resources often affect supply. The government may put restrictions on the use of certain natural resources that can harm the environment. This affects supply because few companies will want to provide a product that people aren't allowed to use. Government rules and subsidies for farming can influence what crops farmers grow or don't grow, which affects supply as well. Technology also has an impact on supply. Advances in technology tend to lower the cost of production and increase supply. Most products were made by hand at one time, but now, as we know, technology, with the advancement of technology, more and more robots are creating many things. Advanced technology actually reduces prices over time, which leads to an increase in supply. An example would be a television. Supply was limited and the price was high when televisions were first made available. Today, there's a huge supply of TVs in all sizes, shapes, and styles. Most people are able to afford at least a small television. Now, back then, that was not a thing. Technology has also decreased supply of some products and eliminated the supply of others. For example, office employees once used typewriters instead of computers. Your grandparents might have used rotary phones, but now you probably use a smartphone. You probably haven't even heard of the mimeograph machine that once made copies, let alone used one. Also, like laptop and tablet computers we use today bear little resemblance to the home computers of the 1980s. Okay, so make it pay. What sorts of products do you buy on a regular basis? Think about necessities such as soap, toothpaste, and shampoo. Why do you buy the brands you do? Is it because they're cheap, or do you have other reasons? Think about the products you buy that are not necessities. What influences you to buy such items? Think about the difference between buying necessities and buying the products you need. This will be posted in Classroom for you to answer.